Lila, and Teeps, and Flora, and me. Rocket.
Boost! Fire!
This has happened before.
Advisor.
Fly me to the moon, just in time for the Lunar New Year. Our natural satellite has been a common place for speculation of life originating there and exploration since the infamous space race, and in this case in video games. It was more than just the object of femininity and magical girl affection. Even as a common object of spontaneous transformation such as werewolves or the great ape of Zoru. Whether the moon itself or a similar celestial setting, encasing low or heavy gravity, it still counts for this list. Let's lift off. To the moon, baby! Beginning this list and barely making the moon landing was the insane escort mission of Earthworm Jim, For Pete's Sake. It's been a long time since I've mentioned this in my countdowns, ever since my Petites list. I think the manual described it in the best and the worst way possible. Walking the dog was never like this. If you let little Peter Puppy fall, watch out! His temper gets the best of him, and he mutates into a ravenous hulking giant. If the meteor showers don't rain on your parade, and the flying saucers don't blow you away, then maybe, just maybe, you'll make it through okay. Oh, did I forget to mention that the Unipus, it's like an octopus but with one arm, tentacles that can kill you? Obvious enough, like using the pun what the heck, this became Petey Puppy's own segment, accurately dictating frustration, annoyance, and exasperation. And it was no different on account of its unrelenting level design. You can tell Interplay was not messing around. And this level in particular is smack dab after level 5, and it's not a problem as one of my swamp levels. I recalled using cheat codes the first several times out, and it's no wonder since Interplay took failure to a more vicious level. There are definitely fates worse than death. And instead of instant kills, you're the one getting mauled by Pete's frustration. Kinda like Hanzo and his raging wraith on that regard. It's too bad you never see the stunning knightly aesthetic present in the SNES and GBA version, and the brighter environment in the Sega versions, possibly depending on the sun's position within the galaxy. Still, due to its unforgiving nature, it barely brings this list to liftoff. This was probably the earliest lunar level I'd encountered, but... yeah, The remastered version does it better. It's no surprise the moon from DuckTales is the obvious pick. Both its environments and especially its music is just sublime. Capcom really knew their craft as they made these famous factors. It's legendary! The story goes that Scrooge searches for the green cheese. The green cheese! In which children used to believe what the moon is made out of on account of the constant yellow texture and craters, closely related to Swiss cheese. Even better is there was the ingenious idea in chewing bubblegum known as Oxy-Chew that tastes like air and gives Scrooge just that while he traverses through the fatal terrain. No doubt there are several mounds, a beautiful story background, and of course low gravity and aliens. It might as well be one of the few interplanetary backgrounds, especially going crazy with the pogo stick. Along the way, Scrooge fights off the moon mites, moon scorpions, and the moon invaders. So too with the Beagle Boys as they enlarge a rat after they beat Scrooge to the cheese. Similar to another contender. Inspired by Metroid, this level became extremely algorithmic, with its zesty concept, fun design, catchy theme song that can rival Mega Man's songs, and has intrinsic ideas in which the series is known for, even gifting Scrooge his own gyro suit in which he becomes Gyro Duck, quite the mega makeover. Capcom was just geniuses, and the remastered version of DuckTales proved that. I follow the game, not the series, but it definitely dictates on how exhilarating lunar levels can be, aside from having stunning backgrounds. We all know the meat and potatoes when it comes down to one of the most iconic popular bosses and characters in all of Yoshi's Island, the famous Raphael the Raven. He's considered as the leader of his clan, the head of the many flocks of blackbird enemies that Yoshi and Baby Mario deal with. At the end of World 6, atop the Blue Yoshi, we're confronted by Kamek, who enlarges the specific fowl who knocks us to his own home turf, which seems to be a very small moon of sorts. I guess it's safe to call it the Raven Moon. It's small, celestial, and also tricky. Upon Raphael's impact, we leave behind our signature spotted eggs and rely more on our wits. Before the bird should plow into you, Yoshi ground pounds the opposite side of the moon's surface where the enemy is, in which a pillar should appear beneath him and take damage. Although we should also beware as Raphael makes giga impacts of his own, creating shockwaves emanating from both sides. It was challenging and technical. Raphael is often quick on his flat feet, and let's hope the player isn't prone to motion sickness while constantly rotating this rocky terrain. The moon may seem simple, but it's far from it in terms of steep precision. It was still a unique environment, though. When it comes down to the Mutant League, there are two types of football fields. Those that either function as any average natural arena, minus the explosive mines, tripping rocks and pitfalls, or the worser playing fields taking place on Space Rock, with your players being lost in the void, falling through ice, or falling into fiery pits resulting in your team's demise. One such football field I've grown fond of was the home turf of my favorite team, the War Stadium, the deathly base of the War Slammers. There were several other spatial choices such as the Butcher Dome, the Pen, Asteroid 66, or even the Void Club, which reminds me of the VR Troopers Indigo sector. The War Stadium is one of the Astro Stadiums in the Sega Genesis game only. It's one of the most lethal arenas of the Mutant League, consisting of Space Rock, making players fall off the arena when out of bounds, but it also consists of fatal mines and fire pits that kill off athletes along with tripping rocks. It's the home turf of the War Slammers run by the General, and the squad itself is a very balanced team, encasing a level of 4 skulls, and has a variety of types of athletes, including an ensemble of aliens, trolls, skeletons, and superhumans. The stadium thus became an instant favorite, along with the team itself. Just like with classic Mortal Kombat, the more deadly, the more fun. It's been my all-time favorite out of all the stadiums and favorable environments of the entire game. And there were some funky selections that came close, such as the bouncy Trip-Out Stadium, or the Void Club with all its blue shades and light gravity, even surpassing the similar Inferno field of the Terminator Trolls. Both the arena and gang inspired me to add the mutants in a VR Troopers crossover since I was around 7, and the episode involving the football just solidified that, including the War Slammers as the main anti-heroes along with a special team. It's chaotic, retro, deadly, alluring, and that's just what MLF is all about. The Fortress is a very intriguing theme featured in the Biker Mice game, specifically the SNES version. It's been the god knows how long I've mentioned this Mario Kart inspiration in my environmental levels, or any countdown at all. It has the usual sharp corners since it's often a giant square, but these levels provide some fun challenges. There are several columns of flashy lights which tend to function as lethal grenades. That is if you manage to take the entire ramp of dash plates, which would take you to some turbines that lift up your car in light gravity. There are also a few jets of fire that attempt to disintegrate you instantly, as well as rows of lightning pods that decrease your power gradually. And lest we forget the excruciating series of giant fans that tend to push you toward the abyss with no guardrails to keep you at bay. It's advisable to remain in the center, like on a trampoline, and turn against the fans' currents if needed. Both Vinny and Lawrence Limburger should have a field day with these levels. They're the lightest racers and most flexible. While Vinny is nimble and tends to leap a lot, and Lawrence alone fits right at home considering he's an alien and drives in his flying contraption similar to Robotnik's. From the Moon Base, to the Mercury Base, to Venus, to Jupiter, to Saturn, and finally to the home turf Mars. Better rack on your cash for a lot of tire and armor upgrades. It's no wonder they're the explosive finales in every single round. The top 5 begins with one of the iconic spatial levels in Smash Bros., the Battlefield. Ever since the original game in the series, I was always fascinated by it, more so than its next-door neighbor, Final Destination. This was at first named the Dual Zone, when we clash against Master Hand's Prototypes, the Fighting Polygon team, and listen to its upbeat theme. Ironically, that particular stage is inaccessible, unless players know how to hack. Another reason why emulators are often the way to go. It was a small arena, but it was expanded in Super Smash Bros. Melee, known officially as the Battlefield, where you often fight the wireframes, even Metal Mario at times. However, many competitors despised it because of the thin edges, and if they use a tanker that isn't good at platforming, it makes recovery almost impossible. I've never cared about these complaints. In every installment since, Battlefield seems to expand more in height, width, edges, and distance from each of the large stage, and the usual 3 pyramid pattern smash boards. But it doesn't seem to retain its astral terrain and light gravity like its predecessors in the OG and Melee, which are always my all-time favorites. Despite the dazzling, though terrestrial backgrounds and enlargements, they seem redundant, and Brawl was just the swan song for me. So both the Dual Zone and Melee's Battlefield were the only GOATs, and they still remain as my favorite stages aside from Hyrule Temple, the Pokemon Stadium, Hyrule Castle, Saffron City, Fourside, Pokefloats, Icicle Mountain, and the Great Fox levels. Believe me, there are some small handfuls. And if only Smash never caved into wokeness and third-party abuse, nor neglect to the fans, then the Galactic stage out of the World of Trophies would have been higher. It's no wonder I had tons of fun there, and it was even a crucial portion of the Smash system during the Net War, specifically against the infected Guardian cronies. It was just fantastic when it lasted. There are several moons that had appeared within the Final Fantasy juggernaut, whether it be 7, 8, Tactics, with the majority of them just being minor designs and fade into the background. But the one for my moolah has always been my favorite installment since I was 4, which actually introduced the moon as a vital part in the series. I'm talking, of course, of Final Fantasy IV. It has always been the grand champion debuting the Dangerous Domain. Actually, make it 2. Ever since you'd see them in the prologue, you'd notice these are actually 2 moons rather than just one. The reason being is because the blue planet has its own natural moon, as well as an artificial moon. About 2 decades before the game took place, there were the Lunarians who evacuated from the Red Planet by asteroid bombardment and needed to find a new home. Because of its primitiveness, they decided to fall asleep until eons would pass, until they're advanced enough. But one of the aliens, Kluya, fell in love with an Earthling, Cecilia, and thus gave birth to the protagonist and antagonist of the game. However, they were also some warmongers amongst their kind, thus always watching over the planet and wreaking havoc. Kind of like a Sailor Moon thing. About 3/4 in, we get to explore the artificial body in which the difficulty ups the ante. Because there are ferocious monsters, parasites, and fatal beasts throughout. The deeper you go, the absolute worse it gets. Especially when you meet truer evil in the subterrane. And don't get me started with the behemoths when you face 3 in a row! No wonder the omnipotent Bahamut and the Maenads call it home. The crater doesn't count, neither. It's too bad it was the only stage representing 4 in Dissidia, though. I feel so bad for the Hummingways living there. And the Lunarian layer is just a meat factory since Kluya left, to the point I'm turning to an everlasting blood moon. I can even say it competes with Venom in difficulty, ferocity, inhabiting deadly enemies, and easily being a death's door. Definitely be 55 or higher before collapsing into the unrelenting abyss. And evolving from a medieval setting to a futuristic style? It can't get any better as long as you aren't bastardized by a piss-poor sequel. In the bronze rank is another amazing portion of Dinosaur Planet, the Moon Mountain Pass. It seems pretty common to associate a moon with a mountain these days. It's not quite so easy accessing that place. In order to find the first spellstone to assemble the doomed planet, Fox travels through a maze and several toxic airlifts pretty close to its venomous core, sapping away his vitality. Best not to be lost within those gaseous chambers. When he does manage to break through, he comes across a vast, eerie, and cavernous landmass which is contrast to the world's lush environments. According to Pepe's expertise, this unusual terrain was forged after Saria's second moon collided onto the world. Similar how an asteroid ended the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. As a result, it became a poisonous and sometimes even scary wasteland, making mutated species adapt and call this place home. Even the foreign sharp claws and general scales. Thus, the menacing enemies, the tricky terrains, the location of the first spellstone leading from its core, the endless nights and murky moonlight, as well as the unique moon seeds that can only grow with fire. Contrary to the usual sun and water, even being under heavy clouds, those said fumes rot, choking out any traces of sunlight and nourishment, making its very own alien ecosystem. Just like the moon itself, it is bound to be constantly bombarded by destructive space rock. Fox and Tricky should know. It's no wonder it's been like the foreboding frontier, much like Outworld or even the Wild West, as an isolated wasteland is part of the planet where no other native can possibly tread in. Unless they have a sort of death wish. It's almost like the enemy's own hidden turf aside from Dragon Rock, and you need to traverse through it a few times, mind you, for a Krazoa spirit in a hostile test, and sealing off the Volcano Force Point Temple from Walled City Spellstone. It's undoubtedly original that even transcends Pokemon's own Mount Moon. Nevertheless, Moon Mountain Pass is like several parts of nature, beautiful but deadly, yet something to inevitably endure. Ever since I first encountered Mario RPG, the Star Hill became my instant favorite environment ever. I definitely believed in that phrase, love at first sight. Because just looking at it, it was the perfect celestial place you can just relax to and immerse yourself in. It was just as dazzling and less toxic than the Moon Mountain Pass. And yet another association between a moon and mountains. Mario, Mallow, and Geno journey through the southwestern region for a star piece, one of 7 that Smythe and his weapon gang usurped. Unlike all regions, though, it's actually just found rather than guarded by the usual boss. Sounds easy, I know, but as stated, this was pretty much designed as for exploration and immersion. This was just a welcoming break from all those several consuming bosses in Booster Tower and Marrymore. How can you possibly resist the unique moon-like meadows, especially with those indigo blue mounds located throughout? Or the amazing starflowers open into a keyhole, which seems to be the prototype leading up to Kingdom Hearts. Or even the irresistible charming music. It's very interesting that this sacred place was built upon people's wishes, as having them granted, kind of like prayers from the Trees of Souls in Pandora. You can even examine each of these said wishes, even from enemies in the Switch remake, and after defeating them again, their wishes change, deflecting their defeats. Just like the moon itself, it's a wondrous celestial terrain, and it was just the paradise needed from so many excruciating boss fights in a row. I say, this is the best version of any story domain throughout the whole juggernaut. Why greedy woke Nintendo never made a single damned course for Star Hill, especially in Mario World, I'll never know!
We've got to have money.
They truly missed out on something very special. So too with Mallow and Geno for Smash. Just like with my Sky levels, I wish for this to be a part of heaven itself. Alright, we've took orbit around 9 lunar destinations. But before we approach our final destination upon re-entry, let's fly past the honorable and dishonorable mentions. Originally, the Star Hill was going to take the gold, but up until a few years ago, I found a more promising and beautiful contender. The Chaotian Age stage exclusively for Mortal Kombat 11 and Aftermath. There were many factors why it remained as an ever-looping staple in my eyes. The setting is literally the dawn of time, when and where the universe and time itself began.
Welcome to the dawn of time. Here history ends and begins again. Behold the start of the new era.
After Liu Kang loses to the Titaness of Time the first time around, she gives him another time warp from the prehistoric age. We also encounter this celestial period as we fight her in the ladders too, spontaneously transporting us there from the age of dinosaurs. Within a distant meteor eluding between the void and our own galaxy between a sun and star formation, I think you might even get light gravity there. As the architect of history, this is indeed Kronika's home turf, encasing her hourglass and where her powers are the most potent. Even giving some weird-ass interactions such as sandy holograms from the grains of time, assuming the form of random interactions, from weapons to watchful Tarkatans. And in the story mode, if you lose both rounds, Kronika then decapitates Liu Kang before starting an irreversible apocalypse, while also erasing history as we know it. Just like with the previous two entries, I not only necessarily wanted to fight there, but actually immerse myself in it. A little piece of the majestic heavens, just watching time flow and let the universe regenerate itself, while also play around with the unique environment such as frolicking in the light gravity combined with oxygen, as well as time travel to many different eras from the home base. I swear, this place can be 10 times better than any surreal planetarium. In real life, the Aeon Chaotian is a proposed point in time of geological events that consist of the Earth's creation. It is said to be one of the earliest events in the creation of Earth, which even includes the formation of the solar system. Our entire existence, along with the series, all began here, just before the formation of the One Being and war into the Elder Gods, the formation of the realms and the Kamidogu. And while I don't necessarily consider every ending to be canon, nor Dominic's failed experiment with his new error, and the Malarkey multi-universe, I'll preserve a few occurring from here. From Lord Liu Kang recreating the new era with Titaness Katana, or settling down and relaxing, or having it take place in a special scenario or two in my chronology. Trust me, I'll get to that. It doesn't always have to take place on the moon itself to make such an incredible, irresistible lunar level. I'm the Ekron Rider, and the Chaotian era just makes a moon-like section all the worthwhile. Anything and everything starts somewhere, and this was just the preamble of history itself. It's original, it's overall sublime, where Mother Nature and Father Time conversed. Just as Lutana should have been.
Each realm must choose its own destiny. Whatever those choices, we will face them together.